You can't control other people's emotions, but you absolutely can program how they respond to you from the very first second. And the irony is, you don't even need to say a word. Just walk into a room, and the way you stand will either unlock or slam shut every door. A person who stands with shoulders back, head held high, eyes forward, and steps steady doesn't just give off a trustworthy vibe. They activate an unconscious reflex in others. This person deserves respect. You don't need to speak loudly. Your body speaks before you do. And people believe that signal more than any explanation you could offer. The world is a system of continuous feedback. You send out a signal, it responds. But what you're sending isn't words. It's energy. It's posture. It's eye contact. It's how you take up space. And here's what matters. You don't wait for others to affirm you before you stand tall. You stand tall first. You send the strong signal first. And the world responds to you based on how boldly you dare to demand it. Posture isn't just about physical form. It's social positioning. In any group, even in the animal kingdom, the one who stands tall is the one in charge. The one who slouches, shrinks, or drops their shoulders is usually seen as vulnerable, passive, even lacking leadership value. And this is what you need to understand. People judge you not only by what you do, but by what you emit. When you walk in with eyes avoiding contact, shoulders sagging, and chin lowered, you're sending out an unconscious command, ignore me, and that's exactly what they'll do. But here's the part most people miss. Posture doesn't only affect how others see you, it affects how you see yourself. Posture is a mirror that reflects back inward. When you stand tall, you don't just make an external impression, you send an inner message. I am steady. I have worth. I have the right to be here. Day by day, repeating that posture begins to reshape your self-belief from the inside out. No need for pep talks, no extra theory, just the courage to change how you stand and how you step into every moment. Not saying that standing tall guarantees success, but I am saying that if you don't do it, you've already removed yourself from the front of the line before even opening your mouth. You live in a system where emotions, imagery, and nonverbal signals determine who gets chosen and who gets ignored. And in this game, your presence, not your resume, is the first thing the world sees. You may have knowledge, skills, even big goals, but if you walk in with the energy of someone asking for permission to exist, that's how you'll be treated. But if you walk in as if you have every right to be there, as if you bring value to that space, that alone will begin to shift the atmosphere around you. Some people ask me, how can I feel confident when I have no reason to be? The answer is, you don't wait for a reason. You don't wait for an achievement to earn the right to stand tall. You stand tall as a declaration. I'm shaping myself into someone, and I don't need to apologize for that. Posture isn't the reward of the successful, it's the tool of those building success. And I want you to keep this in mind. Every system around you, work, society, even family, is subtly placing you into a role. But if you change the way you stand, you begin to redraw that map. You force others to see you through a different lens, not through begging, but through an undeniable signal. I am here, and I will not accept a place lower than my worth. You can't fake posture for long if your inner world isn't aligned. But if you persist day by day, your body will retrain your mind. This is where we belong. And from there, small habits begin to shift direction. The way you reply to emails, the way you enter a meeting room, the way you communicate with others, the way you talk to yourself. Don't underestimate posture. It's where you declare to the world and to yourself that I no longer bow my head. And when you stand tall, you're teaching the world how to treat you. You don't need to shout to be noticed. You just need to send a clear signal that others can't ignore. This isn't about appearances. This is the game of presence. And if you don't control the first signal you give off, you're handing the steering wheel of your life to someone else. So starting today, don't walk into a room as if you're apologizing for being there. Walk in as if you are an essential part of that space. Walk in as if you have something important to offer. And remember, posture isn't a gesture, it's a signal. You don't need to say much, you just need to stand right. And then you'll see the world begins to respond differently because they don't just see a straight body. They feel a person lifting themselves up day by day, and they will have to adjust how they treat you accordingly. You deserve that if you dare to stand up and step forward. If you had a close friend who was in pain, you wouldn't let them suffer alone. You would take them to the doctor, listen to them, help them take their medicine on time, and encourage them bit by bit to get through it. But the irony is, when you find yourself in the same situation, you don't do the same. You ignore your symptoms, delay treatment, even dismiss your own breakdown as if it isn't worth caring about. You're refusing to treat yourself as someone who deserves care. And in doing so, you're creating a gap between your true value and the way you allow yourself to be treated. I'm not talking about indulgence or making yourself the center of attention. I'm talking about a profound form of personal responsibility. The responsibility to care for yourself as if you truly matter. Have you ever had a pet? If the vet prescribes medication, you buy it. Follow the instructions, ensure the timing and dosage because you care. But with yourself, do you do the same? Most likely not. And the most important question is why? Many people think they're being strong by ignoring their own pain, but in reality, they're just avoiding the truth. The more you neglect yourself, the more you lose control of your own life. Because when you don't take care of yourself, you're sending out a silent message, I don't matter, I'm not worthy. And that is the root of many self-destructive behaviors, procrastination, addiction, self-judgment, and perfectionism that drains you dry. You cannot expect the world to care for you if you don't start with yourself. No one can understand your body, your mind, your emotions like you can. No one can intervene early in something abnormal unless you are aware enough to notice it. No one can pull you out of the deep hole unless you're the first to reach your hand up. And you won't be able to do that if deep down you don't believe you're worth saving. We often forgive others for their mistakes, encourage them to keep going after failure, but with ourselves, we may silently punish ourselves for years. You know every terrible thing you've ever done. You know your weaknesses, bad habits, cowardice, and shame you try to hide, and you use all that to conclude that you don't deserve kindness. But you forget one thing. You know those things about everyone else, too. No one is perfect. But that doesn't take away anyone's right to heal, including you. You don't need to wait until you're good enough to be cared for. You need care in order to become better. No one becomes strong by abandoning themselves. Every time you treat yourself with compassion, you rebuild the trust between you and yourself. You're saying, I will not abandon you again. And that sentence, repeated daily through concrete action, will transform the way you view life. Start with the simplest things. Get enough sleep, eat healthy, focus on what you're doing, and stop when your body says it's tired, not because you're weak, but because you need strength to continue. Pay attention when your mind becomes tangled, when negative thoughts start to repeat. Don't ignore them. Don't say I'm fine when you clearly aren't. Your mind needs to be listened to as if it's your best friend whispering for help. And here's what matters. When you treat yourself well, you begin to set a new standard for how others are allowed to treat you. You no longer accept relationships that make you feel small. You no longer seek validation by harming yourself. You step into the world as someone who knows their own worth, and the world no longer gets the chance to undervalue you. Have you ever wondered why you lack motivation or can't maintain discipline? Maybe it's not because you're lazy, but because you've lost trust in yourself. And the way to regain that trust isn't to force yourself to do more, it's to return to caring for the basics. No success strategy is strong enough if your inner foundation is rotting from neglect. This is not an emotional lesson, it's a principle. All sustainable growth begins with the relationship between you and yourself. If that relationship is distorted, everything else will fall apart. But if you learn how to take care of yourself, not because you're perfect, but because you're the only one who can live this life, then you will build a foundation nothing can destroy. I'm not advising you to become weak or self-indulgent. I'm advising you to be honest. Honest about your emotions, honest about your limits, honest about your needs. Because from that honesty, you can begin to build true resilience. Not resilience born from abandonment, but resilience nurtured in the right way. If there's one thing you should commit to from today onward, it's this: never abandon yourself again. No matter what the past holds, no matter how many times you've failed, you still have one person who is always there. That's you. And if that person knows how to care for themselves, the rest of the world will never be able to break you. Not everyone who calls themselves your friend is truly meant to walk with you for the long haul. Some people show up in your life only to pull you down. They don't have to do anything overt. Sometimes just one half-joking comment, a skeptical look when you talk about your dreams, or silence when you share your success can be enough to push you back a few steps. And if you stay around that kind of person for too long, you begin to doubt yourself. Not because you're not capable, but because their stagnation and negativity slowly seep into your mind like ink dissolving in water. You need to understand this clearly. Everyone around you is either pushing you forward or holding you back. There's no neutral ground. There are people who, when you're around them, make you want to do more, think deeper, live with more responsibility. And then there are those who make everything seem pointless, who help you justify your procrastination, who keep you sitting in place and call it peace. But that's not peace. That's mental freeze. I once witnessed a friend step out of his own life simply because he couldn't bring himself to leave toxic relationships. He used to be smart, ambitious, visionary, but he always returned to the same friends who every time he advanced would mock him or pull him down with doubt. And you know what happened? He started censoring himself, stop sharing big ideas, stop setting bold goals, just to keep the peace. But the price of that peace was his very future. You need to be honest with yourself. Do the people you spend time with truly want to see you grow? Are they happy when you improve? Do they support you when you change for the better? Or are they only comfortable when you stay the same so they don't feel left behind? Some people won't say it outright, but you'll sense it through their eyes, their reactions, the awkward silences. And if you're sensitive enough, you'll realize they don't want you to fail, but they also don't want you to surpass them. Don't hold on to a friendship just because of the past. The only reason to keep any relationship is that it helps you become a better version of yourself. A true friend doesn't always say what's easy to hear, but they will always say what's right, and they'll say it with love. They won't stand by while you destroy yourself and then applaud you with comfort. They'll step in and tell you to stop. They'll demand that you rise. They'll challenge you when you diminish yourself, and you must be willing to do the same for others. Not everyone who is falling needs to be left behind, but you must clearly distinguish who is trying to rise and who is trying to sink, and drag others down with them. Kindness isn't about saving everyone. It's about recognizing who is worthy of your effort. If you keep staying in circles that only complain, delay, and blame, you'll be sucked into an energy that turns every goal into a far-fetched fantasy. The question isn't, am I a good enough friend? The real question is, are they good to the version of me I'm striving to become? Because if the answer is no, you are wasting your precious time nurturing a bond that is corroding you from within. You may love someone, you may cherish memories with them, but that doesn't mean you have to carry them with you on your journey of growth. True friendship can be interrupted if one person chooses to stay behind while the other is determined to move forward. Sometimes growth doesn't come from advice. It comes from a decisive choice to walk away from those who make you doubt your path. Quietly, without anger, just a gentle step in a different direction toward where your energy is restored, where your actions are encouraged, where you are reminded that you have the potential to do something meaningful. You cannot grow in a land that does not allow you to change. And a true friend will never hold you back just to feel less inferior. They will push you further. And sometimes they'll even choose to step back so they don't block your way. That is real nobility. If you're at a turning point, if you're rebuilding your life, start by examining the people around you every day. What are they doing with your dreams? Are they planting seeds or snuffing them out? Are they lifting you up, or intentionally or not, keeping you anchored to where you used to be? The answer doesn't have to be loud. You only need to listen deeply, and you will know who truly deserves to keep walking beside you and who should be left behind as a part of the past, beautiful perhaps, but no longer something you need to carry. You are rising. Make sure the ones with you are facing the same direction, because no one can pull you down unless you hold on to their hand too tightly. When you were meant to let go, there is one guaranteed way to always feel inferior: compare yourself to others. You scroll through social media and see someone getting promoted, another traveling, an old friend buying a house, someone else losing 10 kilograms, and within seconds, you judge your life as a failure. Not because you've placed yourself in a competition whose rules you don't fully understand. You're comparing your whole unfiltered self to someone else's carefully curated version. You don't know what they had to trade to get what they have. You don't know what they're losing behind those glamorous photos. You only see a single slice, and you let it define your worth. But if you keep viewing life through someone else's lens, you'll never see the path you truly need to walk. And worse, you'll never see yourself slowly improving little by little every day. The only honest way to grow is to compare yourself to who you were yesterday. No one knows your journey better than you. No one understands the limits you're pushing through, the habits you're working to change, the failures you've stood back up from. And those things, no matter how small, are irrefutable evidence that you are rising, not fast, not flashy, but steadily. You can look at others to learn, to be inspired, to expand your vision, but you must not use them as a measuring stick for your own worth, because you don't live their life. You don't carry their pain, their experiences, their responsibilities, or their limitations. And the funny thing is, they may secretly be comparing themselves to you and feeling inadequate too. This invisible comparison makes everyone lose because no one is truly themselves in that dynamic. I want you to understand this clearly. Each person blooms at a different time. Some race ahead early, some break through in the middle, some stay quiet for half their life and then shine when others have grown tired. If you compare yourself to someone on chapter 12 while you're just finishing chapter 2, that's not truth. That's a self-inflicted injustice. You don't need to be better than anyone else. You only need to be better than who you were yesterday. If yesterday you procrastinated and today you took action, you've improved. If yesterday you spoke harshly to yourself and today you paused and breathed, you've improved. If yesterday you quit halfway and today you returned to do a little more, you've improved. And those small steps, repeated consistently, will take you farther than any sudden leap. Someone once asked me, how can I aim high without letting my goals crush me? The answer lies in breaking down the journey into steps you can actually take. Big goals are necessary. They stretch you beyond your current vision. But if you don't know what the next step is, you'll remain stuck. So every morning, ask yourself, what's one thing I can do today to be a bit better than yesterday? Then do that with focus, kindness, and without judgment. You don't need to win at everything to prove your worth. You just need to keep going. Maybe you're in a phase no one else sees. You're learning how to believe in yourself again. You're rebuilding habits. You're fixing what's misaligned in your life, piece by piece. And no one is clapping for you, but you still do it. That is the real victory. You can't control the speed of others, but you can fully own your direction. And if you persist, you'll go farther than those who only chase appearances. They might beat you today, but if you keep getting better, even just 1% each day, in a year, you'll be an entirely different person. Someone disciplined, resilient, deep, with a foundation nothing can shake. The last thing I want you to remember, no one else lives your life. Don't let someone else's gaze redraw your map. Don't let someone else's success make you forget that you too are making progress in your own way. Every time you return to your personal journey instead of comparing, you reclaim power. You go back to being the author of your story, undistracted, unmanipulated by things that aren't yours. Tomorrow, you might not have reached your destination, but if you're better than you were today, you're heading in the right direction. And that alone is something to be proud of. No need to prove it, no need to compare, just continue. Loving your child does not mean letting them have whatever they want. Not every concession is an act of love. Shielding your child from all harm is not the way to make them strong. If you believe that being a parent only requires unconditional love without discipline, direction, or clear boundaries, then you're setting the child you love up for a future filled with disappointment. Because society does not run on emotion, it operates on principles, consequences, and real-world feedback. And a child raised only on indulgence without guidance will never adapt to the real world where no one loves them simply because they exist. A child raised by blind affection may grow to believe they are always right, that others must meet their needs, and that when they fail, it's the world's fault. But you know that's not true. The world doesn't bend to personal emotions, and if you don't teach your child how to take responsibility, you will one day witness that same child resent life and resent you for not preparing them to face reality. Parenting isn't about being your child's friend. You can accompany, understand, support, but you cannot bend to every wish without asking what's right. Your role is to shape, not to please. If you're afraid of your child being upset, afraid of them being hurt, afraid of them feeling sad, when you set boundaries, then you're prioritizing short-term feelings over long-term development, and that will make your child into someone whom no one wants to collaborate with, trust, or connect with, because they won't know how to self-regulate. Your child doesn't need someone who always says yes. They need someone strong enough to say no when necessary. They don't need you to remove every obstacle. They need you to teach them how to overcome obstacles, not to become a hero, but to avoid becoming a victim. If you shield your child from every failure, you are stripping away their chance to develop inner strength. If you fear they'll get hurt, you're unintentionally weakening them day by day. And if your parenting is ruled by fear, your love becomes a soft but dangerous form of bondage. I've met many adults who carry a quiet rage because their parents loved them but didn't teach them. They were coddled but not forged. They were praised but not shown how to correct their mistakes. And when they entered the world, every clash came as a shock. They didn't know how to accept feedback. They didn't know how to take responsibility. They didn't know how to cooperate, compromise, or show respect, not because they were bad, but because they weren't prepared. They were abandoned by indulgence. True love means teaching your child that no one owes them anything. If they want to be liked, they must learn to live in a way that earns others' trust. If they want to be valuable, they must learn to contribute. If they want freedom, they must learn discipline. These lessons don't come from theory. They come from how you live, how you respond, how you set firm limits while remaining kind. You don't need to raise a perfect child. You just need to help them become someone who takes responsibility for themselves, someone who thinks of others, someone who can fail without falling apart, someone who can love without becoming dependent, someone who can stand firm even when no one is there to help. And that only happens when you stop being the fixer and start becoming the enlightener. Teach your child about truth, about limits, about consequences, about gratitude, about humility, about listening and self-correction. Do this through action, not just words. Show them that you live with principles, discipline, and accountability. Because children don't learn from what you say, they learn from who you are. Parenting is a journey that does not welcome ease. It demands that you stay firm even when your child is angry, crying, or resisting, because you don't respond based on emotion, you respond based on long-term goals to help your child become someone the world can trust, work with, and care about. If you can do that, you're not just a good father or mother, you are a builder. You are crafting a human being who can stand up, self-regulate, and guide themselves. And when you one day see your child face the world with steady feet, you'll understand every boundary you set, every principle you held firm, every time you dared to be the bad guy in their eyes were priceless gifts, not so they depend on you, but so they can become independent and grow beyond you. There is a common mistake that many people make. They want to change the world while their own inner world is in chaos. They call on others to live responsibly, but they've never sat down and asked themselves whether they're truly living responsibly. They want society to be kinder, fairer, more transparent, yet they nourish toxic thoughts, speak with criticism, live without discipline, and ignore the very tasks they know they should do, but constantly postpone. If you can't even take charge of your own room, don't rush to talk about taking charge of someone else's life. Real change doesn't start with grand speeches, bold declarations, or inspirational slogans. It begins with the little things, very little things, in your own life. The way you fold your blanket each morning, the way you push your chair back in after standing up, the way you respond when criticized, the way you keep a promise, even one made only to yourself. Each of those actions is a reflection of who you are becoming. If you can't clean up the chaos in your living space, in your emotions and your thoughts, you'll never have the power to influence anything greater. Do you want to help others live better lives? Start by living in alignment with what you say. Do you want to make an impact? Let your actions speak louder than your words, because the world doesn't respond to your slogans. It responds to how you live. And no one follows someone who is quick to judge but afraid to reflect. The people who truly inspire others to change without forcing it are those who have walked out of inner clarity. Order is not a boring concept. It is the physical expression of clear thinking. When you clean your space, you're cleaning your mind. When you organize your work, you're training your ability to manage. When you correct a small habit, you're reshaping your internal structure. And these changes, though quiet, are the most solid foundation for lasting impact. You don't need to do anything grand to start influencing the world. You only need to begin where you stand, by having the discipline to straighten your desk, cut toxic relationships, pause habits that weaken you, and confront the mess you've always avoided. I've met many people with big ideas, grand visions, powerful dreams, but they skipped the core. Their internal system wasn't stable. They lived in disorder, thought in fragments, acted inconsistently. They spoke of changing the world, but couldn't maintain a clear morning routine, a serious schedule, or a simple promise. Not because they lacked ability, but because they underestimated the power of what seemed simple: neatness, discipline, and a quiet commitment to oneself. You want to have a big influence? Start by reorganizing how you eat, sleep, work, and rest. Begin by deleting junk files from your computer, clearing out your inbox, removing what no longer serves your purpose. Reset your priorities, cut out distractions, and make a vow to yourself. I will not call others to change before I am the clearest example of that change. The world doesn't need more judges. It needs people who dare to live differently. And that difference doesn't lie in ideas, it lies in behavior. You can silence a room just by walking into it if you live with order, depth, and a solid foundation within. But that can't happen if every morning you lose to your bed. If you let the chaos in your mind spill outward, if you use "I'm busy" as an excuse for the disorder in your thoughts and habits, no one is asking you to be perfect. But if you're serious about creating change, the first change must be you. Cleaning up isn't just an external act. It's a spiritual ritual. It sends a powerful signal to the brain. I am in control. I am not being dragged by chaos. I am restoring the order of the world, starting with me. If you can do that every day, even just a little, you won't just change your space, your work, or your habits. You will change your operating system. And when that happens, you won't need to try to influence others. You will become a reference point, one that others look to and adjust themselves accordingly. That is the real way to change the world, not with a scream, but with the quiet strength of someone who knows how to begin from within. There is a crossroads you constantly face in life. Either choose what is meaningful or choose what is easy. One path is filled with challenges but leads to growth. The other is smooth and comfortable but takes you in circles. If you keep choosing what's easy, sleeping in instead of waking up early, staying silent instead of speaking the truth, procrastinating instead of starting, you will slowly lose yourself in convenience. Because what feels pleasant in the moment often comes with a hidden, steep price: stagnation, regret, and being unprepared for the future you've neglected to build. You were not born to live an easy life. You were born to create something of value. And value does not come from comfort. It is forged by walking through difficulty, keeping your promises, and choosing what makes you tremble because deep down you know it's right. You don't have to live ascetically, but you do need enough discipline not to choose ease just because it doesn't make you uncomfortable. Every time you choose ease, you lay another brick in a shallow life. But every time you choose meaning, you build a strong foundation for yourself. I've seen many intelligent and talented people go in circles simply because they're used to avoiding what's hard. They're afraid of heartbreak, so they don't speak their truth. Afraid of failure, so they don't begin. Afraid of rejection, so they don't express themselves. And in this avoidance, they think they're being safe, but really they're shrinking day by day. You might be doing the same, telling yourself you'll do what matters while silently choosing the easier path every day, curling up in the comfort zone and calling it fine. But you weren't born to be fine. You were born to become a version of yourself that you can look back on with pride. And that doesn't happen when you constantly avoid the things that help you grow. You want to feel strong? Choose what forces you to stretch. You want to feel confident? Choose what makes you anxious and do it anyway. You want to live a life without regret? Choose what is meaningful, even if it makes you feel uneasy. What's easy doesn't nourish your soul. It leaves you hollow. It makes you feel okay today, but costs you long-term fulfillment. On the other hand, what's hard, though it may make you stumble, bleed, or wrestle with yourself, is what truly shapes you. That's where you learn endurance. That's where you discover your limits and break them. That's where you realize value doesn't come from outcomes, but from the person you become by walking through the challenge. If today you're faced with two options, one, to do the hard thing you've been avoiding, and two, to postpone it once again, look yourself in the eye in the mirror and ask, do I want to become stronger or weaker? No need to speak it out loud. Your actions will answer for you because you can't lie to yourself through daily behavior. You are training yourself, whether consciously or not. And what you choose today becomes your identity tomorrow. Choosing what is meaningful is never easy. It requires facing fear, uncertainty, and the possibility of failure in front of others. But that's exactly what makes you grow. And if you've never experienced wanting to quit but kept going, never kept a promise in silence when no one praised you, never told the truth knowing you'd be misunderstood, then you haven't yet touched the depth of courage you're capable of. Choosing what is meaningful is choosing the long road. Choosing short-term pain for long-term reward. Choosing discomfort to avoid lifelong regret. Choosing discipline over emotional impulse. And the more you choose the right thing, the clearer, deeper, and more trustworthy you become. And here's the beautiful truth. What's easy disappears quickly, but what's meaningful stays forever. One moment of speaking your truth can be etched into someone's memory. One moment of doing what's hard but right can become your strength in the years ahead. And if you keep choosing like this, you won't need to look for value outside. You will become the embodiment of that value. Today, look again at the things you're postponing, the choices you keep avoiding, the actions that could make you better, but you keep saying maybe tomorrow. Then ask yourself, if not today, then when? If not you, then who? And if you keep choosing what's easy, will you ever reach the strongest version of yourself? You already know the answer. And if you dare to choose what is meaningful today, you'll look back a year from now and realize everything changed because you chose to walk through difficulty and live a life worth living. There is a kind of power you can feel the moment you touch it, the power of truth. It doesn't need to be loud nor shocking. Truth, when spoken from an honest mind, has the ability to cut through every illusion and lay the foundation for a life that carries real weight. And if you want to take charge of your life, the first step is don't lie, not to others, and especially not to yourself. Lying doesn't always show up as speaking false words. It can come from silently agreeing when your heart disagrees, from nodding along to keep the peace while your soul is screaming inside, from living in contradiction to what you believe is right just to avoid being judged. Every time you do that, you think you're keeping things stable, but in truth, you're losing fragments of your identity. And the danger is lies repeated long enough won't make you feel guilty anymore. They will make you numb. And that's when you start living a life that's no longer truly yours. I'm not asking you to become someone who always speaks the truth no matter the cost. There are times when silence is necessary because truth is not always welcomed. But you can begin with one simple principle. If you can't yet speak the truth, at least don't say what you know is false. Don't go along with what you don't believe in. Don't endorse what you don't support. Don't play a role to gain acceptance if that role doesn't reflect who you truly are. Because do you know what happens when you live too long within a system of lies? You start to doubt your own intuition. You become confused by even the simplest choices. You stop trusting your own words. You no longer feel the connection between your thoughts, your speech, and your actions. And that weakens you, not in a visible way, but in a slow erosion, a little each day, until one day you look in the mirror and no longer recognize yourself. On the other hand, when you begin to live truthfully, even just a little each day, you'll feel a different kind of energy emerge. You'll feel stronger even without trying to be. You'll feel confident not because someone praises you, but because you know you're not performing. Your honesty may make others uncomfortable, but it will release you from the invisible role that society cast upon you. And once you break free, you become a free person, free to say what you believe, free to live by the values you choose, free to stop pretending. I used to wonder why so many talented people still feel insecure, still feel small. Then I realized it's not because they're not good enough, but because they're living within a web of untruths. They don't dare say, I disagree. Don't dare say, I'm not okay. Don't dare say, I don't want to keep doing this. And that makes them a shrunken version of themselves, even if outwardly they appear successful, because any success built on pretending will never make you truly proud in the long run. Truth may cause you to lose some people, but it will keep the ones you truly need. Truth may lead to being misunderstood, but it will help you understand yourself more deeply. And truth, even though hard to express at times, is always the starting point of lasting transformation, because nothing is stronger than a person whose words and actions align. Nothing is more persuasive than someone with nothing to hide. Nothing is more trustworthy than someone who doesn't lie. You don't need to shout to live truthfully. You just need to be alert enough not to repeat false words, brave enough not to nod when you want to shake your head, honest enough to stand still when everyone else rushes toward the crowd. And if you can do that, you won't just protect your integrity, you'll create a quiet zone of influence where others can see and learn that living truthfully is not a sign of weakness. It is the choice of the strong. If you're in a situation where truth scares you, know that it's a sign you're standing at the doorway of a restructuring. And if you're brave enough to step through it, life on the other side will feel lighter, deeper, more grounded. But if you keep stepping back, keep telling small lies just to keep things smooth, that temporary peace will turn into shackles, binding you in versions of yourself you no longer respect. You deserve to live a life where you don't have to hide, but that only happens if you dare to live truthfully, word by word, act by act, choice by choice. And if you can't yet tell the truth, then at the very least, don't speak what your heart doesn't believe in. That's the first step. And from there, you'll go further toward a life where you can look at yourself directly, without avoidance, without excuses, without fear, a life lived by a real person, living truly. When you sit in front of another person and truly listen, not to respond, not waiting for your turn to speak, but to discover what is within them that you've never known, you are opening a door not only into their world, but also to reflect upon your own inner world. Most people only listen at the level of sound, what's easy to hear, easy to guess. But you, if you truly want to grow, must learn to listen at a deeper level, where every word hides something unspoken. Most conflicts in life don't arise from a lack of information, but from a lack of listening. People react based on assumptions, not facts. They listen to defend, not to understand. And in that process, real opportunities for connection between person to person, mind to mind are lost. But if you're present enough, silent enough inside to pause and listen as though you know nothing, you'll begin to perceive what others never tried to hide, but no one ever looked deep enough to see. When you're listening to someone angry, don't just hear the raised voice or harsh words. Ask yourself, what pain made them need to shout? When you hear someone constantly complain, don't rush to feel annoyed. Look deeper. Maybe it's the helplessness that no one ever understood. When someone tries hard to appear strong, try sensing maybe behind that tough exterior is a soul yearning to be seen. True listening is not a skill, it's a kind of courage. The courage to temporarily set aside your ego to enter someone else's space without judgment. Real listening doesn't happen when you're merely silent. It happens when your inner self is silent too, when you're no longer having inner dialogues like, what should I say next? Where are they wrong? Or how can I win this conversation? A mind full of such calculations can hear nothing beyond itself. But if you can let go of the need to be right, the need to impress, the need to control, you'll begin to hear the life within the other person. And from there, not only will you understand them, but you'll also touch something deeper. You'll understand yourself in the way you react to them. You don't have to agree with everything you hear, but you need to listen deeply enough to know what in their words is true, what is a reaction, what is a signal from an unhealed wound. Because everyone carries a story they've never fully told, and sometimes just by listening with enough respect and presence, you might be the first to make them feel seen, understood, accepted. That is the most powerful thing you can offer another human being, and it begins with listening. But I don't say this to encourage softness. In fact, the strongest people I've ever met are those who know how to listen. They don't need to speak much to prove their strength. The calm in their eyes, the fullness of their attention given to others, that is the mark of true inner power. They are not pulled by every word spoken by others. They stand firm within, yet open themselves outward. And that is what makes them the center of trust, of connection, of real influence. Do you want to become such a person? Start today. Try listening as if what you're about to hear could change you. Because maybe it will. Maybe some seemingly trivial sentence holds a perspective you've never considered. Maybe some modest confession leads you to a whole new awareness of life. But if you don't truly listen, you'll miss it. And what you miss isn't just the words, it's the opportunity to deepen, to connect, to become a version of yourself that is not shallow, not reactive, but one who truly grasps human essence. There is a simple question you should carry with you at the start of every conversation. What is this person trying to say that no one has ever fully listened to? That question will shift how you show up. It will move you from talking to win to talking to connect. And you'll realize in that process, not only do you make others feel valued, but you also enrich your own inner world. Because a mature person is not one who speaks well, but one who hears what others cannot. And once you become that person, you'll discover that listening is not just how you approach the world, it's how the world begins to trust you back naturally, sustainably, without force, just with presence, respect, and a truly open heart. When life begins to feel too harsh, your first reaction is often to retreat, to shut your mind, or to scream to the world, I can't take it anymore. And I understand that feeling. You are not weak. You are simply human. But right at the moment when everything feels like it's collapsing, there is a choice, seemingly small, that can save you. Find one tiny fragment of beauty and hold on to it as if it were the last anchor between you and life. A sliver of sunlight through the curtains in the morning, a leaf fluttering in the wind, a hug that needs no explanation, an old song you used to love, a glance from someone dear, without judgment, looking at you as if you still matter. That beauty isn't loud. It doesn't solve all your pain, but it whispers to you that you're still here and this world hasn't completely turned its back on you. Harshness is inevitable, but what keeps someone from falling is their ability to still find something worth believing in. And sometimes belief doesn't come from lofty philosophies or grand motivational speeches. It comes from a silent moment when you realize, I can still see beauty, even just a speck. When you hold on to that glimpse of beauty, you're preserving the most essential part of your humanity, your sensitivity to life. That's something darkness cannot take from you unless you let go first. I've witnessed people go through adversities far greater than you can imagine, losing loved ones, losing all their possessions, losing themselves in depression. And what kept them grounded wasn't intelligence, wasn't sheer willpower. It was something small they refused to let anyone take from them. For one, it was the image of their child sleeping. For another, a poem their father used to recite. For someone else, the sound of birds in the morning, even just for a few minutes. They clung to it, like someone drowning, grabbing onto floating wood. And day by day, breath by breath, they found their way back. Not to conquer the world, just not to lose themselves. And you, if everything feels too heavy, I want you to pause for a moment. Not to think, but to feel. Look around you. Maybe you see nothing to be proud of, but maybe, just maybe, you'll find something worth preserving. A line from an old love letter written in your journal, a cup of coffee still warm, a good night message from someone who still remembered you, even though you were silent all day. These small things won't save you instantly, but they say one thing: you're still connected. And if you're still connected, you haven't been completely cut off from this life. Beauty is connection. It's the last remaining softness among the rough edges. And it's worth holding on to, especially when everything else starts to fall away. I don't ask you to appear strong. I'm not saying everything will be okay right away, but I can tell you this: if you can still hold a small light within your soul, no matter how dim, then darkness cannot fully consume you. And if you dare to look at that small beauty each day, you are quietly training your eyes that can detect light even in the deepest night, eyes of someone who has endured pain but refused to go blind from it. Pick the most beautiful thing in your day today, no matter how small, and let your mind truly touch it. Don't just glance, live it for a few seconds. A painting, a message, a kind act from a stranger, remember it. And tomorrow do the same. This is not a game. This is a survival skill. This is how you keep yourself from drifting, from being swallowed whole. Not because you're stronger, but because you're more sensitive. You know what matters, and you don't let it wash away in the storm of life. The world is not short of suffering, but it is also not short of beauty. The question is, where are you looking? And do you dare to hold your gaze long enough to see through the fog? Because harshness doesn't erase beauty, it only covers it. And if you're steadfast, you'll see even in ruin, something still deserves to be cherished. Like how a single flower grows amid the rubble. No one taught it to be beautiful. It simply knows if it's alive, then it must bloom. And so should you. If you are still alive, find something beautiful to live alongside and protect it as if it's the most sacred part of you. Because when you do that, you are no longer a victim of adversity. You become the one who knows how to choose a new center of gravity. And life, no matter how cruel, cannot defeat someone who still knows how to be moved by beauty.